All right, guys, we are back. We are back, and we are trying to be better than ever. Because when you come back, you're not just trying to be better, you're trying to be better than you have ever done it. So it's Kurt Magoosh. It's a Slaughterhouse Sports production. And we're going to talk about the tumultuous week of the Atlanta Falcons. All right. So the Atlanta Falcons, all of last week, they pretty much delayed Matt Ryan's signing bonus on their program until this coming Tuesday. And then today, they decided to trade away a guy that has won, a guy who's been there, I believe, 16 years of work and has only missed 3 games in Matt Ryan, a quarterback that has won division championships, a quarterback that has played in 2 NFC championships, a Pro Bowl quarterback, one of the most accurate quarterbacks in NFL history, a durable, tall quarterback out of Boston College via Philadelphia, and that is Matt Ryan, and he had himself a tremendous career in Atlanta. He was on the doorstep, obviously, of that title in 2016. He led Atlanta to the brink of another NFC championship against the Philadelphia Eagles. Matt Ryan had his share of really close calls in the playoffs. He made the playoffs early against the Arizona Cardinals, and Kurt Warner wasn't able to beat that team. I believe that Arizona team might have went on to pretty much be 2 minutes away from a Super Bowl in, I believe, 2008, 2009. So Matt Ryan, guys, let me tell you, Matthew Ryan is an absolute legend. He's a legend in Atlanta, and Matt Ryan's a tremendous, tremendous player. So very, very good, potential Hall of Fame quarterback. Obviously, I think you would be in the Hall of Fame with that ring if you were able to finish it against the Patriots and Tom Brady. But Matt Ryan, sometimes in the playoffs he has come up small, like against Nick Foles. He oftentimes won't make the really difficult throw in the playoffs that like an Eli Manning or a Brett Favre, like somebody who really throws a lot of interceptions will just make like that kind of balls to the wall kind of throw, but he's a rhythm passer. He's very tough, very accurate quarterback, tall quarterback, really sees the field, and really has a good deep ball. Matt Ryan, during his heyday, could really throw the ball deep. Tons of expectation. Highly paid quarterback, number 4 pick, and I believe the 2007 draft. So Matt Ryan and the way that he's carried himself being in the spotlight for that many years as a starting quarterback in Atlanta, he's just been tremendous to the city of Atlanta. Matt Ryan's been nothing but a class act, and he's carried himself tremendously, and he's a pretty consistent performer now. He's never won a Super Bowl. Sometimes in the playoffs, he can come up small, against San Francisco, I would say there's 2 biggest, and again, when you're that good, you get the honor of the pressure, or you get the honor of it sounds ironic, but you get the honor of choking when you, again, have that kind of success. So the Atlanta Falcons, they were the number 1 seed in, I believe, 2011 or 2012, and Colin Kaepernick and the 49ers, they were up 17-0, had a brilliant first half, and Atlanta and Matt Ryan went so cold, and Patrick Willis and that team with Anquan Bolden and San Francisco, I believe Frank Gore might have been running the rock. That San Francisco team, Colin Kaepernick and Jim Harbaugh, they were able to come back against Atlanta and Matt Ryan. And then, of course, the Super Bowl. But, then you could talk about the Eagles game in 2017, and they would have had to go to Minnesota. They could have potentially did a replay of 1998 if they were able to win that game. and able to have that last drive and make that last throw into the end zone. But Matt Ryan, I just want to go ahead and read you his record, or read you all the details about his career. I mean, his TD to interception ratio is unbelievable. So, for Arthur Smith, I mean, listen, guys. I mean, I'll tell you, in 2016, he went 11-5. That was the year of all years. He was an MVP that year. He was tremendous that season. 2017, 32 years old. That was again a year I talked about. They went to LA and played a brilliant game. Matt was great in that playoff game against Seattle and against the Packers, against Aaron Rodgers. I mean, Matt Ryan was great. I think there was a year also Aaron Rodgers got him. During the Super Bowl run, a lot of teams that beat Atlanta have gone on to win the NFC and win the Super Bowl. I mean, Aaron did it, the Eagles did it, and then the Giants did it in 2011. The Giants defense held Matt Ryan 24-2. So Matt Ryan is an awesome quarterback. As a Giants fan, I could tell you sometimes when you're playing a guy like Matt Ryan, though, you're not that afraid because he can't really run or the explosive plays aren't really there. But he's consistent. He'll keep you in the game, and he can read defenses, and he can make plays. He can light you up. Matt Ryan can do that. In the playoffs, he's had his opportunities, and that's because he's been such a great quarterback. And I think he's a fringe Hall of Famer. I look at actually Matthew Stafford won one ring, but who has consistently over the years been a better quarterback? It is Matt Ryan. And, I mean, if you put Matt Ryan in Detroit, I believe that Detroit, wins a playoff game. I do. I believe that Detroit's a more consistent team. And as I've gotten older, I've gotten to respect, even though guys like Phillip and Rivers and Matt Ryan have never won championships, the way that they were consistent, you still got to give them props for being a really good player. There's only very few guys that ever win the Super Bowl. Now it's going to start happening as more quarterbacks are leaping their situation to go to better situations. So you're going to see guys like Matt Stafford team up with like one of the best defensive players of all time in Aaron Donald. And you're going to see like Odell Beckham leave midseason, to join. You're going to see Von Miller leave and contribute to a Super Bowl team. There's more player movement in the National Football League, more quarterback movement. Tom Brady, Matt Stafford, Russell Wilson, and now we have more quarterback movement. So now, after talking about Matt Ryan, let's talk about Terry Fontenot, and let's talk about Arthur Smith, that is. So Arthur Smith, Arthur Blank, Terry, they went out last week, and they went big game fishing. They looked to get the hometown kid back in Atlanta, Deshaun Watson. Now with the trading of Matt Ryan, it really appears like Atlanta was really in on Deshaun Watson. And Deshaun Watson, he had reservations about playing in Cleveland because of the cold weather and because he's never played in cold. And then, Albert Breer of the Sports Illustrated, he said today that Deshaun went out to Cleveland because Myles Garrett, Amari Cooper, the running game of Chubb, young offensive line, vibrant general manager in Eric and Andrew Berry. So that's all reasons, why I thought like Cleveland, would be appealing for Deshaun. So, what ended up so now what's going on in Atlanta is Matt Ryan. The one thing about Matt Ryan last year is Matt Ryan just wasn't able to move around very well. He would get sacked a lot. When he went up against the 49ers, in the second half, he was really embarrassed. Matt Ryan, even against Tampa Bay, like when they were at home, their defense was great. I think they might have gotten a pick six at the end of the half. He just didn't deliver in that moment. And he's getting older. The guy's going to be 37 or 38. Let me see how old Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan right now. In May, he will be turning 37. All right, 6'4" quarterback. So for Atlanta, I like this move because, like, as a Giants fan, I experienced, Eli Manning, the last coming, and it hasn't been that rough. And again, the Atlanta market is, somewhat better as a player because, again, the media, it's not like super, super polarizing all the time. And now, you have one of your big stars kind of on a rebuilding team. Atlanta is able to send Matt to a really good spot in Indianapolis. It was a mutual parting. And maybe Matt was ticked off by the Deshaun Watson stuff. But again, like for Atlanta, Ryan's play was deteriorating, and now you're turning the page. So then they go out today and they sign, a quarterback that Arthur's really familiar with. They sign a guy in Marcus Mariota. They sign him to a 2-year deal worth about $19 million, so more than Tyrod Taylor. It's very interesting because Marcus Mariota was a part of the team where Ryan Tannehill was inserted with Arthur Smith. So it talks about the connection that Arthur and Marcus still have for each other. Marcus Mariota's, if you've ever heard anything about Marcus Mariota, heard the guy speak, have watched contents of him, video of him, he's one of the nicest human beings that's maybe ever played in the National Football League, came from Oregon via Hawaii. So Mariota is just awesome. He's awesome to have in a quarterback room. What he offers you athletic ability. He can really run the ball, intangible values. Like the players really want to play for Mariota. Can be accurate with the football, has very good size. The arm strength is something that's a question. Ball security is a question. Really, arm strength driving the ball is why in Tennessee he struggled, and that's why Ryan Tannehill, who has a much bigger arm and is able to throw in the tighter windows, was able to take over. But now you get a quarterback that is certainly a guy that's going to be who could start for you a couple of games, who could start for you in a season. So Atlanta now, if I were the Atlanta Falcons, because you've seen Mariota, on Tennessee, and he had Tennessee. I mean, he had that gig because he went out there and he beat Alex Smith and had that unbelievable comeback. And then he struggled immensely, I believe, with an Arthur Smith offense during the year where Tannehill came in and replaced him. He was immensely just very poor in those four or five games, really bad for a quarterback that was on like his 4th or 5th season in the National Football League. And Mariota was okay in Tennessee. He had his highs, he had his lows, but he got about 4 or 5 years. So it may seem contradictory, when I say like, Drew Lock should get a chance, but Mariota can like get 7 or 8 games. Mariota should have every chance to win the competition in camp. But Mariota is also a veteran player at this stage in his career. Does he have the arm strength that wows you, like even Baker or Drew Lock? Now, he throws a good deep ball. That's the thing. In training camp, I one time went to a tight training camp, and he was connecting deep, and he was playing well in the training camp. So, and he does give you that ability to be mobile. So, I look at Marcus Mariota and put it this way, he should get the opportunity to lead the offense. But if I'm Atlanta, I'm looking to bring the hometown kid home. You already struck out on one, but I'm looking at Malik Willis as a quarterback out of Liberty, that number 8 pick in the draft. What I'm doing is I'm looking at the New York Jets at 4. I'm looking at the Giants at number 5. And the Giants have picks 5 to 7. And they're not going to be in the market for a quarterback. So Atlanta, like, they could trade maybe a future second, a 3rd round pick that they just acquired, and they could try to move up, the number 5 pick on draft night, because they're going to have to leapfrog over the Carolina Panthers. Now, could Carolina get Garoppolo or Baker Mayfield? That's going to be interesting. But Malik Willis, if you pair him with Marcus Mariota, again, you could try to start running, a little run-read option with Mariota. And he did that stuff in Oakland. He was great at it at Oregon, with Helfrich, the Scott Frost offense. So Arthur Smith can then start developing that, because Malik Willis is very good at running. He's a guy that you can that plays outside of the pocket. That's a downhill runner that can hurt you with his legs. And Malik Willis, he has that strong arm. He's a little bit different than Mariota. And I believe like it could be a really good 1-2 punch. And then if Mariota, again, if he struggled like he did in Tennessee a little bit, you can then incorporate the rookie. And Malik Willis has the talent. His upside is an MVP level of play. I mean, he's going to have one of the strongest arms in the NFL, maybe a top 5 arm in the NFL the minute he gets to the NFL. I mean, his deep ball, the way he can drive it intermediately, the way his speed, the way that he runs, he can truck people. He's great. I don't care where he's playing college, Liberty or Division III. The guy is, and he can throw his platforms, the way the guy can spin the football, his intangibles are off the charts in terms of, a person that is reliable, in terms of a person that is kind, cares about the Lord, coming from Liberty. And in the excerpt that you hear, he's that. So again, players and things happen, but you're taking a chance on a franchise quarterback. And Malik is a special kid if you followed the story of Willis and the adversity that he's had ever since he left Auburn. So again, I think that it would make a lot of sense. Mariota is a solid quarterback, but I don't know if he's your long-term guy because I have questions about his ability to drive the ball into really tight windows. He might throw those lollipop interceptions, the cold weather. So I think that he's a quarterback that, again, say the Panthers get, a Malik Willis, then I think Carolina should stay, try to get Kyle Hamilton. I don't know if you get Thibodeau on that defense. I got to look at the offensive line situation, but then, Hamilton would be great with A.J. Terrell. Hamilton is a guy that you could put everywhere on the field, but Hamilton might go early in this process. Trevor Penning might be too high to take. Obviously, Thibodeau from Oregon, on adding him to the defensive line. So, man, if you're Atlanta needs a lot of pieces, though, because Calvin Ridley's leaving that team. Julio Jones is left, so Zacharias might be. Russell Gage left, so your best receiver might be Zacharias. It's obviously Cordell. Kyle is probably the best player on your offense now, unequivocally, after his pretty successful rookie season. But Atlanta is turning the page, and people are freaking out about this. I don't know why they are. I guess they wanted Matt Ryan to stay, but again, Atlanta gave them chances to win. It's a new regime. He's been there 16 years. He's getting up there in age, and Atlanta hasn't been close to performing at a high level ever since the end of the Dan Quinn era just a couple of years ago. And Arthur and Terry are building something different. They're building something new. And Malik Willis can definitely be in their plans. And if Hamilton is not there, you look at Derek Stingley. Do they want to pair Stingley and Terrell? That could be actually Sauce Gardner. I really love out of Cincinnati, Sauce Gardner. So the 8th pick is very enticing. So much is going to depend on Carolina in the draft and their NFC South foe. So for Atlanta, getting rid of Matt Ryan, it's certainly, does it sting? It's not like Matt Ryan still might be able to be awesome. Like Baker Mayfield had those awesome stretches of his career where he's won playoff games, where he's competed at the highest level, when he played at the highest level, dealt with coaching changes, like a guy like Drew Lock, who's very young. There's quarterbacks that are young that turn around their fortune. And Matt Ryan, you got the best out of him. Even last year, Arthur was putting him in good situations, and he's just not as mobile as he once was. The arm strength's deteriorating. So now this leads us to Indianapolis. Could Indianapolis have got Garoppolo? Could they have gotten Jimmy G and played him like seven years of Jimmy G? 5 to 6 years? Absolutely. Now, they might have had to give away 2 seconds. They were going to have to give away more than an aging Matt Ryan, and they took in the contract. They look at Matt Ryan as a consistent performer, which he is. I mean, he plays completely differently than Wentz. He's going to take care of the ball, going to be really coachable, going to be a great leader, going to be really accurate. With a good running game, I believe that Matt Ryan can be decently effective. Now, I don't think that he's going to come close to winning, the AFC. I think that the division is somewhat possible, although I'd still lean Tennessee. I don't see Tennessee falling off of a cliff. Now that they got Robert Woods, but Indianapolis, I still think they're in the same boat, kind of. With Baker Mayfield, unfortunately for Indy, I don't know if Cleveland was going to trade him in conference, just states over. Again, Carson Wentz, it's just the way that it went with Carson. He's much younger. He had a lot of ability, and now you're getting like another Phillip Rivers where Matt's going to play 2 years and then have to retire. You're going to have the same dilemma again. If I'm them, second round, I'm taking Carson Strong out of Nevada, and I'm training him, mentoring him to replace Matt Ryan 2 years down the line. But it's a tough situation. I mean, you had Baker out there. Deshaun wasn't there, but Jimmy Garoppolo, to me, just with the play action stuff, he kind of has that ability to shock people in the postseason. I actually think Jimmy's a clutcher player than Matt Ryan in the playoffs. I mean, I know Jimmy hasn't that much playoff experience, but Jimmy G in the playoffs has a much better record. Now you can point to his team, his scenarios with Kyle Shanahan. But Jimmy Garoppolo, against Dallas, was really good. Jimmy Garoppolo against Minnesota in the playoffs was pretty damn good. Against LA, he was right there. In the Super Bowl game, he played pretty damn well. In the regular season, he's come up with major big throws and major wins. So I'm really curious to see where Garoppolo ends up going. I thought that should have been the move, honestly, for Indianapolis. And now they're just kind of kicking the can down the road again. They were left in a tough spot. They couldn't get Watson in conference. In division, they couldn't really get Baker Mayfield. So did they improve over Wentz? They did. It's still really tough. I mean, you had a quarterback in Trubisky. I obviously like Drew Lock a lot. They should still probably try to acquire Drew Lock. Whatever quarterbacks in the National Football League, there's probably a backup somewhere that I really like. I mean, gosh, there's backups that don't even see the field, but maybe even Jordan Love. Maybe you get a third-round pick, you give the third to Green Bay, and you take in Jordan Love and you see what the kid's got. I mean, Jacob Eason was a quarterback I thought was really talented. Apparently, they didn't like him around the building, so or something. I don't know. They just cut him. He outperformed Ellinger in the preseason, so they've been trying to find a fix, and they still don't have a long-term fix at the position. They upgrade, but they still don't have a long-term fix. So it's hard to get really mad at Indy because it's not like they passed up a Watson opportunity. It's not like they passed up Baker. I think that Denver had more to offer to Seattle, but if I were actually Indianapolis, I would have sold the farm, I think, for Russell Wilson, maybe 3 future firsts actually for a Russ, because I think Russ would have been the quarterback in his still mid-30s, that Russ would have been the guy with Jonathan Taylor that could have got this team over the edge. If they would have gotten a Russ. So they get a Matt Ryan, and I don't think he has enough pop. And if they were playing in the NFC, they would have an opportunity. I still think Aaron and Tom are better than Matt Ryan. The Colts have a pretty good team. Their defense is pretty solid. Darius can play. They got good secondary guys. They go out there and then they get Yannick Ngakoue, so they're boosting their defensive line. They're solid, but again, they're wide receivers. They're lacking that punch that the teams in the West have. Denver's roster, Kansas City, of course, Buffalo. The Patriots are going to be really nasty again. Mac Jones in year 2. Dolphins are going to be really tough. So I'm looking at the AFC right now, guys, and of course you have Herbert and the Chargers defense. That could very well be the favorite in the AFC, is a young, MVP emerging Justin Herbert. Lamar Jackson in a bounce-back year for the Ravens with maybe a healthy Dobbins is going to be just, the entire AFC. I don't think Burrow is going to replicate his success. I believe that was their window, really. And you could see Burrow end up a little like Matt Ryan. Like, I don't think Burrow, you can mark me down on this video, I don't think Joe Burrow in the next, I'll say 5 Super Bowls, I'll say in 6 Super Bowls, I don't see Joe Burrow playing in the next 6 Super Bowls. And if he stays as a Bengal for his entire career, I don't see him playing in more than 1 more Super Bowl. I only see him playing in maybe 2 for his entire career. And for Joe Burrow, and again, I doubted Joe Burrow a little bit at LSU. I doubted Joe Burrow at LSU because I was like, kid came from Ohio State, didn't beat out Haskins, had marginal arm strength, and during that first year, he was making clutch plays. But again, he was only scoring about 17 to 20 points a game in an Ensminger offense. I know he beat Auburn on the road with the big throw, at Jordan Hare. But even against Alabama, like, that team struggled. At home against Alabama. So his first year, he was still getting his feet wet. And then, of course, Joe Burrow was morphed into the greatest season we've ever seen from a college player. And then the NFL, I'm like, I don't think he has I know he was unbelievable in college. I don't think he has the arm strength. I said to actually take Tua over Joe Burrow. I'll admit that. I will give myself credit for it. I fought Herbert. I marked it actually Tua, Herbert, Burrow. So that ended up being wrong with, Burrow looks better than Tua right now. But Justin Herbert has a chance to match Joe Burrow. I thought that everybody was being nasty to Herbert for no reason. The character, the arm strength, now it's all very, now it's out in the open. But for Indianapolis, they're stuck. They're totally in purgatory now. They're still a successful team. They're not the Giants. They're not the Jets. They're not even Detroit. They're not Houston. They're not the Washington Redskins, Commanders, and football team. They're not any of those 3 Washington teams. They're not a dumpster fire organization like Joe Judge said about the New York Giants. They're not. They're not. They're a successful. They're not even Jacksonville. They're not Jacksonville. They're not Houston. They are a successful organization with Peyton Manning. Then they had Andrew Luck, who again went to an AFC championship, had the great comeback against Andy Reid and Alex Smith, and then, of course, beat Peyton Manning in Denver. Andrew Luck took him out in the playoffs, the Deflategate season. So the Colts, and then with Ballard, they've been solid, been rock solid. Made the playoffs with Rivers, took Buffalo to the wire in the COVID season. Last year, they beat Buffalo on the road convincingly. Were up on Baltimore, beat the Patriots at home. If they would have beaten Jacksonville with Wentz, they would have had a shot. They went to Arizona. They took care of business. Wentz played well in that game. So that's why it was weird. I know Wentz was horrible against Jacksonville. I know they didn't trust him at points during the season, especially even against the Patriots. But did they react too emotionally to Wentz? What happened? Reich, did Wentz change emotionally? Did Wentz's personality change a little bit? Or was he a little bit in a different mindset? Sometimes life causes that to happen. But man, they went out and got Wentz. The coach, Frank Reich, went out there and got his guy. And then suddenly that guy wasn't that guy again. Maybe that injury, something ended up happening. He was very erratic with his throwing of the football, regressed big time to Indianapolis in their practice. It just sucked because I thought Wentz would be the guy that would still be there. I still think Wentz can, he's young enough to still figure it out. So Indianapolis gets Matt Ryan. If they end up let me describe to you how, if they made it to the AFC Championship, even though Colts fans and the national media might say that's a failure if they get blown out in the AFC Championship, I'll put up my hand and say, damn, you guys made a really good move. If they lose in the divisional round, I'll say it was still a good move. If they lose in the wild card, I'll say it was all right. It was kind of a lateral move for them. If they miss the playoffs, then we're going to look back on this as not that successful. My prediction is they lose in the divisional round because the AFC is just too tough. The NFC, they might make it to the divisional round. But you got to get a really good quarterback. Their team is good. They're decently coached. They're a well-run organization. They're the Houston Texans of the 2000s. Without J.J. Watt, they have Matt Schaub. They hang around. They win a playoff game, and then they get bounced. They're Andy Dalton, and that's who they are. Andy Dalton and the Bengals. They're 11-5, 10-6, and they lose. And, Jimmy Garoppolo just has a little more pop. He has magic. And over the middle of the field, he has a little bit more mobility, a little more zip on his throws over the middle of the field. Matt Ryan's more durable. Matt Ryan's taller. Is he more consistent? Yeah, he's a little more consistent maybe with not turning the ball over. So it's an upgrade, but they were stuck. So tough, like a C trade for the Colts. For the Falcons, again, this trade is predicated on the future now. And it's a good psychological move for the Atlanta Falcons to get rid of Matt Ryan because now you're now the Band-Aid's off. It's a complete new regime in Atlanta with Arthur and Terry. And then if you had Deshaun Watson, you're tied up. So now these guys, Arthur and Terry, get a lot of freedom to work. And it's obviously going to be this move again, the third-round pick. The move is honestly going to be with what Arthur and Terry do. So this pick in itself, or this trade, it was inevitable. And I think it's a smart move for when they did it because now it allows them to really get their quarterback or get Marcus up to speed with the offense and really commit to Marcus Mariota. So this trade doesn't really impact things. It's the decision they make at quarterback. It's things way down the line for Atlanta. This one singular move does not really, it just sets whatever the plan is in motion. But this exact move is nothing. It's just announcing that they're starting. It's just saying, okay, I signed up. I'm ready to participate. I'm ready to take this test. I'm ready to take this college course. It just is participating. Like, I'm ready. I showed up. The Seattle Seahawks, by trading away a star in Russell Wilson and getting back that kind of haul, they're going to have to make that haul right because they got themselves like a really good haul. But for Atlanta, third-round pick, it's just we're getting rid of Matt Ryan, and it's officially the Arthur and Terry show now. And the emotional ties, because that's the thing, and with Eli, it was tough for Giants fans, with Pittsburgh. And I like how those older organizations do it. I love honoring a legend. I think he'll come back to Atlanta. And with the Deshaun thing, it was just unfortunate. They had to go after Deshaun. They made it kind of messy a little bit. But I bet in time, Matt will retire a Falcon. And he really took Atlanta. And when you look at his legacy there, he made this organization. He made it relevant. He made it one of the best organizations, one of the better organizations in that division. I know Drew probably beat it out. I still think it's better than Tampa because Tom was there for just a couple of years, but they experienced more success than Tampa. Carolina's close. Carolina also got to a championship, but Atlanta. So, man, you look at that division, Tampa Bay, New Orleans, Carolina. It's a decent group of teams, but Matty Ice, that's all I can say. So, I know the video went long, but I was in the mood for a monologue, and usually you're going to get one a night. Big quarterback carousel news surrounding Atlanta, and now the Indianapolis Colts get their new starter again. Third quarterback, 3 years. A veteran, one of the better ones to do it. He will give them a chance to be competitive in that division, but can he experience success that I don't believe can happen, which is AFC title, Super Bowl? Can he put them really to be a Super Bowl contender? That will remain to be seen.